about the time that World War II started, my dad was a fiddle player, and I knew a few chords on a guitar, and we would play these country dances. So I guess you might say I got my musical career started when I was about 10 or 11 years old. Moved over to Claremore and continued playing, and summers I'd do farm work, and I got thinking about it one day. I was pitching hay, it was hot, it was down to Vertigus Bottom, baling hay, and I thought, you know, the neck of that guitar fits my hand a lot better than this pitchfork, so I go home and I start practicing. Started a little swing band in Claremore in 1948 called the Oklahoma Swing Billies. Played with them a couple of years and got out of high school and hit the road with a guy named Art Davis who had got started here in Tulsa. Fiddle player, we went to New Mexico and traveled around, and one thing led to another. I got back here in 52, played in Tulsa with Johnny Lee Wills' band, 52 and 53. Went back down to Lawton, Oklahoma and played and had our own Western swing band. Got a call in 58 to come out to Clovis to play with Norman Petty studio, at Norman Petty's studio. And while I was there doing sessions, he said, can you stay over a few days? I got a lot of sessions, I don't have a guitar player. And during that time, I knew Buddy Holly was from Clovis. Buddy came by and he said, I've been listening to what you've been playing on some of Norman's records. He said, I like what you're doing. He said, I'm going to be recording a couple of nights. Could you play on my session? I said, yeah. He said, very good. So we set up a session. The first thing we did was It's So Easy and Heartbeat, the first two songs I did with Buddy. Well, this was in May of 1958. So in June, got a call from Buddy. He said, Tommy, he said, they're fixing to release It's So Easy. And I had done a little guitar lick on it. Kind of set the song up, played the same thing 2 or 3 times on it. At the end of my solo, I did a little walk down thing on the bass strings. He said, I really love that solo you play, but he said, I've been trying to learn it. He said, I can't play it. Can you go on the road with the Crickets? So I said, sure, you know. Well, I've got my Western swing band, making pretty good money, but it wasn't like the money he offered me to go on the road. And so I did, and that was kind of the start of my rock and rolling. Went to California, met Snuff Garrett, started producing records, and that's when I met Leon Russell. They were looking for work, and I got them the weekend job at the Palomino Club, off nights for the regular band. Started using him on demo sessions, and he just grew into a musical giant, you know. I like to think I helped him get started. Well, you know, I had a song, had a buddy, Cliff Crawford, had written a song called Old Rivers, and I wanted to make a demo on it, and kind of a little country tinge piano. I got Leon to cut that demo. That might have been one of his first demos out there. And Dick Glasser started using him on demo sessions, and then we started using him on master sessions. The rest is history, you know. He was just a great player. He could play anything, you know. Whatever you were playing, we say in the business, you know, the guy plays good, he's got big ears, he listens to what's going on. And Leon could hear everything going on. If it needed a lick, he knew exactly what lick to put in, you know. Very talented piano player. He played that Floyd Cramer style of piano, but it's a little different. And you can really hear it. We did a Twist in the Country Classics album on Liberty. And I called the group the Raiders. It was before Paul Revere and the Raiders. And Leon played some really good, it's almost a rock and jazz country piano on those things, you know. And I think that's some of his best work was on that one album. Before long, everybody was calling him Blue Adler. I introduced him to people like Blue Adler and people around town that could, you know, would need a talented piano player. There was some, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great piano players in LA, hundreds of them, but Leon could just sit down and, you know, if he's playing with the Everly Brothers, it didn't matter, Jan and Dean, he could play what fit the song. And that's what it's all about, you know. We did a demo on Little Sister one time for a couple of rhythm and blues writers out of Nashville, or out of New York. And we did the demo, and I put the guitar lick on it, you know, and Ben Wiseman said, I want to introduce you to Elvis and get you on the session. He was recording over there. So we go over to the studio, and they had already recorded, they was recording Little Sister when we got there. Some other guitar player wasn't one. It wasn't one of the Nashville guys, it was the LA guy. I had already put my lick on it. And the same happened with Leon. Leon would put licks on the piano on those demos. And if he didn't play the session, whoever they got, you know, why wouldn't they call Leon to come and play what he played? You know, this happens all the time. Happened a lot of times in Nashville. I'd be on sessions and they'd say, piano player, can you play like Pig Robbins? But yeah, and, you know, why didn't they just hire Pig, you know? Or why didn't they just hire Leon? But he's responsible for lots of piano licks, lots of them. A guy named Sammy Masters, who worked for Cal's Corral. Cal had a big Sunday afternoon, Cal Worthington Dodge. And all the local bands in the clubs would play that TV show. Well, they'd bring in stars, Sammy would, and Saturday night he'd book them out to Pomona, somewhere around, and Sunday afternoon he'd have them on the TV show. Well, Saturday night he had George Morgan, country artist, booked out at Pomona Fair. And Sammy called me and said, Tommy, can you put me a little country band together to back George Morgan? I said, yeah. So I get Leon and Dave and Chuck, we go out and back George Morgan. And years later, I'm producing a session in Nashville with Lorrie Morgan. I said, Lorrie, he's a big country star. I said, your father, George Morgan, played out in California one time, and I used my little band. I was working for a record company, and I put together a little band to back him at a fair. I said, you'd be surprised if you knew who the guys were playing in the band. She said, who were they? And I said, well, on piano, I had Leon Russell. She said, what? Playing my daddy? And I said, yeah. I said, David Gates was playing bass. Of course, David had already had all the hits with his group. I said, yeah, we backed him up. And she said, you know, he never did say anything about that. I said, well, he probably didn't know who they were at the time, you know. After I got to Nashville, moved to Nashville in 1969, and the great players there, you know, you didn't have to read music to be a great player, you know. You just had to know when to play. Grady Martin one time, I said, Grady, what do you think about when you're playing background to a country song? Or you know, he did the guitar work on El Paso, he's fantastic. He said, Tommy, when you're playing background, he said, remember this, and one note is great if you put it in the right place. And, you know, that stuck with me for years and years, and that's the way Leon was. The right thing is when you put it in the right place, and some people just have the knack to know when to put it there, you know. When I was at Liberty, I was producing Willie Nelson, and Leon was getting out there at that time. He was there, and Willie had heard him, and at that time, Willie was clean-shaven, short haircut. Leon was clean-shaven with short haircut, and looked quite a bit different than they look now, you know. But we cut some good records with Willie there in California. And back then, you know, people said, well, you can't cut good country records unless you go to Nashville. But we cut some pretty dang good records out there. Leon played on a lot of them. I think that's when Willie and Leon got to be connected up to be good friends, you know, in these later years. Did lots of shows together. After I came back to Odessa, I went back out to California, and I was working with a kid named Ted Neely. He had a little group out of Eastland, Texas, and we recorded some stuff with him. And I took him to Jimmy Vaughn, and he signed him. And Jerry Allison said, let's go out and see Leon. I said, where's he playing? He was playing a club out in the valley, up from the old Palomino, just up the street away from where he first started playing when he first got there. And we walked in the front door, man, and that sound just pasted you against the wall. He had horns, and the club wasn't real wide, but it was kind of long. And when you came in, you were facing the band. And man, I said, oh, what a sound, you know. And that's, you know, I think a lot of people heard that band out there in LA and kind of wised up to what Leon could do, because he was arranging everything, you know, for the band. And by then he had already, you know, made a pretty good name in the recording. But I think a lot of the rock people really took note of that band he had. It was a killer. It's hard to tell people the feeling you get when you're working with people like that, you know? Because at the time, you don't think a lot about it. But then when you get older and you work with different guys and you think, maybe your piano player's not playing too good that night. And you think, well, I used to play with Leon Russell, Peg Robbins, and you just feel mighty blessed to get to go down the same road with them people. At least I do. I'm glad I got to do what I did.